The galaxy had always laughed at humanity's dreams. For centuries, humans were considered insignificant in the grand scale of the universe. The Galactic Council, an assembly of the most advanced civilizations, had long dismissed Earth as a primitive world, its inhabitants unaware of the vast powers beyond their atmosphere. The idea of faster-than-light travel, a way to break the boundaries of space itself, was something only the most imaginative minds could hope for. But one day, that hope turned into reality. In a hidden lab deep beneath the surface of Earth, a group of scientists worked tirelessly. They had faced failure after failure, their research often mocked by their peers. But something changed in the lab that fateful day. The impossible happened. Dr. Emily Chen, the lead scientist, stood before the glowing console, her fingers shaking with anticipation. She had spent years working on this project, sacrificing her personal life for what seemed like an impossible dream. Today it seemed that dream might finally become a reality. The FTL ship, a sleek and compact vessel designed for the test, was ready for its first launch. The world outside was unaware, but this experiment could alter the course of history. "Initiating launch sequence," Emily muttered, her voice barely a whisper. The countdown began. With each passing second, the tension in the lab thickened. The engineers watched in silence, some with doubt in their eyes, others filled with hope. Would it work? Could this technology defy the laws of physics that had bound humanity for so long? As the countdown reached zero, the ship powered up. For a moment, nothing seemed to change. The ship remained grounded, its sleek metal surface gleaming in the lab's artificial light. Then, with a low hum that reverberated through the floor, the ship began to shimmer. Slowly, its form started to distort, its edges bending and flickering as if it were a mirage. The room held its breath, and then, without warning, the ship vanished. The engineers jumped to their feet in shock, eyes wide. The monitors flickered as the ship's location disappeared from the system. It was gone, not just out of sight, but out of reach entirely. There was no signal, no trace left behind. We did it," Emily whispered in disbelief, her eyes locked on the empty space where the ship had once been. Seconds later, a blip appeared on the tracking system. The ship had reappeared, not far from its original location, but several light-years away. It had traveled faster than anything known to man, faster than light itself. The room erupted into chaos. Cheers and exclamations filled the air, but Emily stood frozen, her mind racing. She had known this day would come, but not like this. The ship had defied the very laws of nature. This was no ordinary achievement. Humanity had just unlocked a power that could reshape the entire galaxy. But as the euphoria spread through the lab, a cold thought struck Emily. Who else would notice this? Who else would care? What if this technology was dangerous? Could humanity control it? She quickly turned to her colleagues, her mind spinning with possibilities. "We need to inform the authorities. We need to be careful. This could change everything," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Unbeknownst to her, as the news of the successful test spread across Earth, it didn't go unnoticed by the higher powers of the galaxy. The Galactic Council, a collective of the most influential and powerful species in the universe, kept their eyes on all advanced technologies. For centuries, they had ruled the galaxy with an iron fist, maintaining order and control over all known life forms. To them, Earth was nothing more than a speck in the cosmos, a world to be ignored. But now something had changed. The news of the FTL breakthrough reached their ears, and the first whispers of concern began to stir among the council members. They had long been dismissive of humanity, considering them no threat. But this was different. If humanity could break the barrier of light speed, what else could they do? The thought sent ripples of unease through the council. How could they have done this? One of the council leaders, a tall, imposing figure from the Fendir race, muttered, staring at the information gathered on his terminal. This is impossible. The humans have unlocked something we could never have imagined," replied another leader, a sharp-eyed creature from the Asterian species. "We cannot let them control such power." As the council members discussed what to do, they realized one thing. This discovery could not be ignored. Humanity had crossed a threshold that had been forbidden for countless eons. Faster-than-light travel was not merely a scientific breakthrough. It was a weapon, a key to power that could challenge the entire structure of the galaxy. The Council's plan was set into motion. They would send envoys to Earth, learn everything they could about this new technology, and ensure that it would not threaten the existing order of the galaxy. But what they didn't know was that humanity wasn't going to back down. Back on Earth, Emily sat alone in her office, staring out at the city skyline. Her heart raced, still overwhelmed by the gravity of the breakthrough. She had never imagined her work would draw the attention of the galaxy, but she now knew that the eyes of the universe were on her. The Council would come, and when they did, Earth would have to be ready. She had unlocked the impossible. But now, the real challenge began. The news of humanity's breakthrough traveled fast, far beyond Earth's atmosphere, and straight into the hands of the Galactic Council. A power that had long been thought impossible now lay in the grasp of a species once considered insignificant. The discovery of FTL travel was not just an innovation, it was a game changer. The Council, a group of the most influential and ancient species in the galaxy, had ruled the stars with a careful balance of control and fear. They were not about to let one planet, one species, disrupt everything they had built. The leaders of the Galactic Council gathered in their massive, floating chamber, a space station that hovered in the heart of the galaxy. It was an imposing structure, built from the remnants of ancient worlds long since gone, its dark, sleek surface reflecting the cold expanse of space. Inside, representatives from each species sat in a circle, their eyes glowing with a mixture of curiosity and concern. The walls of the chamber flickered with holograms of Earth and the test ship that had performed the unthinkable. How could this happen? One of the council members, a tall, pale-skinned being from the Vythar race, leaned forward, his voice sharp with disbelief. The humans have surpassed every expectation. We dismissed them, but now they hold the key to something we thought was beyond us. The council members exchanged glances. There was fear in the air. And fear, in the eyes of those who had ruled for millennia, was never a good sign. We cannot allow this to continue unchecked. Another voice, low and rumbling, cut through the tension. It belonged to Raxen, the leader of the Coranth, a warrior species known for their ruthlessness. His massive armored frame shifted in his chair as he looked around the room. If humanity masters this technology, they will challenge the very fabric of our power. Their ambition knows no limits. We must move quickly before they grow too strong. The council debated furiously, each member offering different strategies. Some argued for diplomacy, suggesting that they should try to make a deal with humanity, but others saw that as weakness, a misstep that could allow humans to seize even greater control. The idea of a military intervention was proposed, but it was quickly shot down. No one knew if humanity had developed FTL travel as a defensive weapon or something far more dangerous. A hologram flickered in front of the council, showing a battle map of the galaxy. It was marked with the positions of every known faction, every planet and every fleet in the galaxy. Earth was a tiny speck, barely visible among the stars. But in this new reality, that tiny speck could shift the balance of power. Humanity's FTL ship had already made the impossible leap, and that ship, small as it was, represented the beginning of something far greater. Perhaps it is time to remind them of their place, said Lyra, a council member from the Turlux species, her voice like a whisper but filled with authority. Her species was known for their psychic abilities, and her sharp, calculating mind had often helped the council maintain its dominance. She looked toward the hologram of Earth, her eyes narrowing. We will send our envoys. They will bring back information, and we will ensure that this new power is controlled. And if they resist, Raxen growled, his eyes flashing with malice. Lyra's expression remained calm. We will make them see reason. We have always controlled the galaxy. We will not allow a primitive species to disrupt that control. The decision was made. The Galactic Council would send its most trusted agents to Earth to learn more about this FTL technology. But the real question that lingered in the air was whether humanity would comply or fight back. The Council's leaders had never considered the possibility that humans might refuse their authority. Meanwhile, on Earth, Emily Chen sat in a secure government facility, surrounded by the team who had made the impossible a reality. The walls of the room were lined with monitors, their screens filled with data about the FTL ship's launch. The first test was a success, but Emily could feel the weight of what they had unleashed pressing down on her. She had done what many had thought was impossible, but now she wondered if humanity was truly ready for what came next. We've crossed a line, she said softly, her fingers resting on the keyboard as she stared at the latest data. I don't know if we're ready for the attention we're about to get. Her colleague, Dr. Arjun Patel, paced the room nervously. We knew the risks, but this is more than we ever imagined. If the council knows about this, they won't just come here to talk. They'll come to take control. Emily's stomach twisted at the thought. She had worked tirelessly to achieve this breakthrough, but she hadn't thought about the consequences. Humanity was now in possession of a power that could rival anything in the galaxy, and that made them a target. They'll come for us, Emily said, her voice grim. We need to prepare for what's coming. We need to be ready to fight for this technology, for our future. Her words hung in the air as the team exchanged worried glances. They had no idea who would come to Earth first, the envoys of the Galactic Council, or the countless other factions who might want to control this new power for themselves. As Emily stared out of the window, looking at the vast, dark sky, she realized that humanity's place in the galaxy had just been rewritten. They were no longer insignificant. They were a force to be reckoned with. But would they survive what was coming next? The Galactic Council's envoys arrived on Earth within weeks of the breakthrough. Their ships, sleek and powerful, descended onto the planet's surface like harbingers of an impending storm. Each envoy was carefully selected, representatives from the most powerful species in the galaxy, their minds sharp and calculating, their intentions clear. They would take control of humanity's FTL technology, or they would crush Earth's resistance. Emily Chen stood at the forefront of humanity's defense, though she never anticipated playing such a role. The leaders of the planet's most powerful nations had convened, unsure of how to proceed. The entire world was watching, their fate teetering on the edge of a knife. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about asserting humanity's right to exist on their own terms. They had discovered something the galaxy deemed impossible, and they were not about to let anyone take it from them. The envoys were granted a meeting with the United Earth Council, a group formed after Earth's first successful space ventures. Inside the grand meeting hall, the tension was palpable. The representatives of the Galactic Council were seated at one end, their faces expressionless, their eyes piercing, as if they could see through the humans before them. Across from them, Earth's leaders were equally silent, their eyes locked in defiance. The question on everyone's mind was the same. Would humanity bow to the will of the galaxy's most powerful species? I am Jorath of the Korth, said the envoy from the Korth species, his voice like grinding stone, and I come with the authority of the Galactic Council to offer you a choice. You will surrender all research, technology, and data pertaining to your FTL breakthrough. If you comply, we will leave you in peace. If you do not, the consequences will be severe. Emily, sitting among the leaders, felt the words sink into her chest like a stone. The Korth were known for their brutal tactics. Many species across the galaxy had fallen to their might. The other envoys remained silent, their presence alone enough to instill fear. But Emily couldn't shake the sense of something else, something more. We cannot and will not hand over what is ours, said one of the human leaders, a former general of Earth's defense forces. We've earned this technology, and we will not surrender it simply because you demand it. Jorath's eyes narrowed. Then you leave us no choice. The envoy stood up, and without a word, the galactic representatives turned and walked out of the room. Their silence was more ominous than any threat. As the door closed behind them, the leaders of Earth exchanged uneasy glances. What now? What could they possibly do against such overwhelming forces? But Emily wasn't waiting for them to make the next move. She knew what had to be done. Earth had unlocked something the galaxy didn't understand, something they could use to their advantage. They weren't going to be forced into submission. As the days passed, Earth's government put its defenses into motion. Emily had been appointed to oversee the defense of humanity's FTL technology. The scientists, engineers, and military leaders worked around the clock to fortify the planet's defenses and accelerate their understanding of FTL travel. The ship that had made the initial leap into faster-than-light space was being retrofitted, its systems enhanced, its weapons upgraded. Humanity had no choice but to prepare for a fight. The galactic envoys had made their intentions clear, but Emily had a plan of her own. She wasn't about to let them dictate Earth's future. The FTL technology wasn't just a military asset. It was a symbol of humanity's potential, a key to unlocking the stars. She had always known that the technology was dangerous, but now, it seemed to hold the very fate of the planet in its grasp. but the stakes were higher than she could have ever imagined. Every day, more ships arrived from the Galactic Council, huge, intimidating vessels that hovered in the atmosphere, their weapon systems glowing with the power of entire star systems. The world's military scrambled to defend against them, but Emily knew they couldn't win with conventional means. The Council had technologies far beyond their reach. Instead, she turned to the very thing that had brought humanity to this point: FTL. The decision was made. They would go on the offensive, using their newfound ability to travel faster than light to strike before the Council could react. It was a desperate gamble, but it was the only option left. The first strike came without warning. Humanity's FTL ships, now equipped with advanced weapons and shields, tore through space, faster than anything the Council had ever seen. The first target was a Council flagship, stationed near Earth's orbit, preparing to launch an assault. The humans moved with precision, their FTL ships outmaneuvering the Council's defenses and striking with devastating force. In a matter of hours, the flagship was disabled, its crew scattering in panic. The Galactic Council was shaken. They had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they knew they were in danger of losing control. Jorath's eyes flickered with fury as the reports came in. "How could they do this?" he growled, slamming his fist onto the table. "They are not supposed to have this power." Lyra, the Council member from the Turlux species, was silent for a moment before responding. "We must respond, or the entire galaxy will lose its faith in our control. We must crush them now before it's too late." But the Council was divided. Some wanted to retaliate with overwhelming force, while others feared the repercussions of attacking Earth directly. The debate raged on, but one thing was clear. Humanity had awakened a sleeping giant, and now it was ready to fight back. Emily watched the sky as the first human fleet entered the void. The FTL ships, once a symbol of mankind's most audacious dream, were now the embodiment of its defiance. The Council had come to subjugate them, but they had no idea what they had unleashed. Humanity was no longer a helpless species. They had become a force to be reckoned with, and they were about to make the galaxy take notice. The war had begun, and humanity was determined to fight for their place among the stars. The battle lines were drawn, but humanity had no intention of standing idly by. The Galactic Council, once thought to be an unassailable empire of peace and order, now faced a force it had long dismissed as insignificant. For centuries, the galaxy's ruling body had maintained its dominance through a mixture of sheer power and coercion. They had crushed rebellions before. They had exterminated those who dared challenge their rule. But this time, the enemy was different. Earth, underestimating the might of the Galactic Council, had taken a bold step forward. They had unlocked the key to faster-than-light travel, something the galaxy's greatest minds had failed to achieve for millennia. And now, with FTL ships under their command, humanity had shifted the balance of power. Emily Chen stood on the bridge of the command ship, watching as the human fleet, equipped with FTL technology, charged toward the heart of the galaxy. She had never imagined her work would lead to this moment. The small, timid Earth, just a speck in the galaxy, was now a catalyst for change. The universe would soon learn that humanity was not to be underestimated. "Status report," Emily said, her voice calm despite the whirlwind of emotions she felt inside. "The fleet is in position, Dr. Chen," replied Captain Ramirez, his voice steady but filled with the weight of the moment. "We've outmaneuvered the Council's patrols and our FTL ships are ready for action. We've already taken out one of their flagships. They won't see us coming." Emily nodded, but the war had only just begun. The Galactic Council's reaction had been swift and brutal. Ships that once floated serenely in the void were now in a state of war, their hulls flashing with the energy of 1,000 battles. Earth's ships, though outnumbered, were faster, more agile, and better prepared. Their ability to jump through the vastness of space in the blink of an eye gave them an advantage unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Still, Emily knew the stakes. Humanity was facing an enemy that was willing to annihilate entire species to maintain control. The Council was not a group that relented, and they would fight with everything they had to crush this upstart species. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council convened once more. The failure of their first strike had shaken their confidence. But the Council was not a body of peacekeepers. They were strategists, manipulators, and ruthless warriors. Jorath, the imposing leader of the Korth, paced in front of the holographic maps, his large hands clenched in frustration. We underestimated them, he said through gritted teeth. We thought they were nothing but an anomaly, an insignificant species that stumbled upon a technological breakthrough. But now they threaten everything we've worked for. We cannot allow them to continue this fight. Perhaps it is time to use the ultimate weapon, Lyra, the psychic leader of the Turlux, suggested, her eyes cold and calculating. We have ships that no one has seen before, more advanced than anything the humans have at their disposal. If we unleash them, we can end this conflict swiftly. Jarath hesitated. And if their FTL technology is capable of evading even our most powerful fleets? We don't fully understand what we're dealing with. If we strike too hard too fast, we may trigger an even greater response from them. Another member of the council, a stoic figure from the Goran race, spoke up. We cannot let them have free reign of the galaxy. We must act now. If we wait, they will only grow stronger. The council's debate was fierce, but there was little room for compromise. The decision was made. They would unleash their most powerful weapon, the Dreadnought. A ship so powerful, so destructive that it could level entire systems. The council had kept it in reserve for centuries, hoping they would never need to use it. But the time had come. The Dreadnought would be humanity's final test. Back on Earth, Emily and her team worked tirelessly, knowing that the fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. They had just lost their first ship, destroyed by an ambush set up by the council. It was a brutal blow, but they couldn't afford to dwell on it. Every day, new reports came in from the fleet, each one more dire than the last. The Galactic Council wasn't holding back anymore. They had declared war, and it wasn't going to be easy. We need to act fast, Emily said, her eyes fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy. The Dreadnought is on its way. If we don't neutralize it, we'll lose everything. This could be our last chance to turn the tide. Captain Ramirez nodded, his jaw clenched. We have our FTL ships, but the Dreadnought, it's unlike anything we've seen. Its weapons alone could wipe out an entire fleet in seconds. We can't fight them head-on, Emily replied, a spark of determination in her voice. We have to outsmart them. We've been relying on speed, surprise, and precision. This Dreadnought won't be any different. We need to find a weakness, a blind spot. As the war raged on, humanity began to realize the true cost of their newfound power. Each victory came with a price, each battle leaving scars that would take years, perhaps decades, to heal. But even as the Council's forces pushed forward, humanity held its ground. Earth had shown that it could defy the odds, that it was capable of surviving against overwhelming forces. The Dreadnought approached. Emily knew this would be their greatest challenge yet. The ship was an unstoppable force, but humanity had learned to adapt and outmaneuver even the greatest threats. They had one final strike left. It was a risky plan. A desperate plan, but it was their only chance. The battle had raged for weeks, each side pushing forward with relentless force. But the inevitable truth began to settle in the hearts of both humanity and the Galactic Council. The galaxy was never going to be the same. No matter the outcome, everything had changed. The Dreadnought, the ultimate weapon of the Galactic Council, loomed large in the sky above Earth. Its presence sent a chill through the ranks of humanity's defenders. It was a symbol of their struggle, their defiance. And now it was time for the final showdown. The last few weeks had shown humanity's resilience. Despite being vastly outnumbered, the humans had fought with unmatched ingenuity, using their faster-than-light ships to outmaneuver and strike at the heart of the Council's fleet. Yet the Dreadnought was unlike anything they had ever faced. Its firepower was unmatched, and its ability to wipe out entire fleets with a single shot made it nearly invincible. Emily Chen, standing in the war room on Earth's capital, stared at the holographic map of space. Her eyes were weary, but they burned with a fierce determination. It was clear to her now that this war wasn't just about technology. It wasn't just about FTL travel. It was about humanity's place in the galaxy. The Council had underestimated them from the start. Now it was time to show them that humanity could not, and would not be controlled. We've come too far to lose now, Emily said, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. This Dreadnought is their last hope to end this conflict, but we have a chance. We need to use everything we've learned. Captain Ramirez, standing beside her, nodded. We've got one final shot, Doc. We can't let this be our last battle. We can't go down without a fight. The plan was simple yet dangerous. Humanity's FTL ships had become experts at surprise attacks. their speed and agility proving to be their greatest strength. But to take on the dreadnought, they would need more than speed. They would need precision. The plan involved a two-pronged assault. One group of FTL ships would create a diversion, drawing the dreadnought's attention, while a smaller, faster fleet would sneak in through an unprotected flank, targeting the ship's vulnerable systems. It was risky, but it was humanity's only chance. As the fleet prepared for the final battle, the tension was unbearable. The pilots of humanity's ships were veterans now, each one having fought in countless skirmishes against the Council's fleets. They knew that this would be the fight that defined their future. The eyes of Earth were upon them, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. In the command center, Emily's hands shook as she watched the final preparations unfold. The dreadnought looming above them seemed invincible. Its black hull was a stark contrast against the endless void of space, its massive weapons ready to annihilate anything in its path. The Council had underestimated humanity's ability to endure, but this time, Earth would make it stand. "We can do this," Emily whispered to herself, though a part of her wondered if it was true. Could they really defeat the most powerful weapon in the galaxy? Captain Ramirez placed a hand on her shoulder. "We've got this, Doc. You've given us a fighting chance. Now we fight for Earth." The battle began just before dawn, Earth's horizon lit by the flashing lights of war. The first wave of FTL ships surged forward, using their speed to evade the dreadnought's targeting systems. The dreadnought responded with devastating force, its weapons firing in blinding streaks of energy that tore through space. The diversion was working. The dreadnought was focused on the attacking ships, leaving a gap in its defenses. Meanwhile, the smaller fleet, consisting of the most skilled pilots and engineers, made their move. They jumped through the folds of space, appearing behind the dreadnought in a flash of light. The fleet moved swiftly, launching precise strikes at the ship's vulnerable components. But the dreadnought wasn't just a weapon, it was a fortress. Every attack was met with fierce retaliation, and several human ships were destroyed in the process. Emily watched in silence as the battle unfolded, her heart pounding in her chest. The fate of humanity hung in the balance. There was no going back. They had to succeed or they would fall. As the human ships launched their final assault, the dreadnought's shields flickered, just for a moment. It was all they needed. "Target the core," Emily ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. Now! In a brilliant display of precision, the fleet's remaining ships concentrated their fire on the dreadnought's core, its power source. The ships fired everything they had, pushing their weapon systems to the limit. The dreadnought's shield began to crack, its energy readings fluctuating wildly. For the first time, it looked vulnerable. And then, in a flash of light, the core exploded. The shockwaves sent ripples through the fabric of space, throwing the remaining ships into disarray. The dreadnought, once an unstoppable force, was now a lifeless hulk drifting through space, its engines silent, its weapons powerless. Humanity had won. The victory was met with disbelief, followed by roaring celebrations. Earth had not only survived, but had triumphed over the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. The Galactic Council, shocked by the turn of events, scrambled to understand what had just happened. The message was clear. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Emily stood at the head of the war room, her heart still racing from the battle. It felt unreal, like a dream that she hadn't yet woken from. The dreadnought was gone, but what came next? The fate of the galaxy had shifted in an instant, and Emily knew that this was only the beginning. The Council would have to adapt to this new reality. No longer would they be able to control humanity. Earth had shown the galaxy that it could stand on its own, that it could rise above the expectations of others and forge its own path. As the sun rose over the planet, Emily looked out across the horizon, a sense of pride filling her chest. Humanity had proven its worth. But now the real question remained. What would they do with their newfound power?